once said, music produces a kind of pleasure that human nature cannot do without. Perhaps that is why our early Mizo ancestors yearned and searched for their own music for so long. Welcome back to Hello Mizoram. This time, we're going to take a look at how early Mizo society embarked on a long journey to bring about the joy and power of music to their own culture. It was often said by our Mizo ancestors that long ago, when they were still residing in Lentlang in present-day Burma and the surrounding land, they didn't have a single song lyric. They wanted to be able to dance and sing, but they didn't have any lyrics or music to dance and sing to. However, even back then, they knew that the Lai tribe, also known as the Boy tribe, did have music. In fact, they had several songs even at this stage. Eventually, folks from the Mizo community started stringing one or two sentences together to form a sort of sing-song communication to call out to each other. They had these couplet phrases to sing along to, which were usually simple ways of calling to each other going uphill or downhill or walking along a path. But still, these short phrases were not enough to dance to. Then, somebody came up with the idea of creating lyrics by calling out the names of their children in a sing-song tune. Of course, this meant that those without children were not able to join in, and then those with lots of children were able to dance much longer than those with few. Now, it is said that one day there was a traveler from the Lai tribe, and the Mizo villagers invited him to stay with them for a while, to feast, drink, and be merry. Their hope was that he would be so kind as to share some of their traditional songs, and by emulating them, the villagers hoped that perhaps someone among them would soon be able to start composing songs in their own language too. Sure enough, a few years went by, and the village chief summoned 3 people that he thought might be able to compose a brand new song that all the villagers would be able to dance along to. The first of the trio stepped forward, but was unable to come up with anything that could resemble a song. The second stepped forward, and unfortunately, he too was unable to string 2 lines together that they could dance to. Then, the third person thought long and hard in silence for a while, until he finally stepped forward. He recited lyrics that depicted something that the villagers were already very familiar with, the komma, or the fruit of the nutgall tree, which they harvested every year. He spoke the lyrics along to a new tune that the villagers could at once start dancing to, and thus our Mizo ancestors started having music of their very own. Now, one interesting thing that we discovered during our research for this video is that for a very long time, the Mizo people didn't have a precise word for the collective term for music. There were names for individual instruments, but certainly not music as a general terminology. And then, in 1966, during an all-India radio broadcast, a man named B. Thanmoya came up with the word Rimoy. Ri meaning sound and Moy meaning beautiful. So the Mizo phrase for beautiful sound has become the overarching word for music, Rimoy. Now, one highly acclaimed Mizo historian called Chhuah once said, "Just as it is impossible to trace the true origin of our Mizo ancestry, so it is just as difficult to trace the true origin of Mizo song." Still, many people have attempted to do just that. According to many Mizo academics, including Lalthangliana and Lalthangliana, who wrote this book, there is evidence to suggest that some of the earliest origins of Mizo music can be traced back to as early as the 13th and 14th centuries in a place called Lentlang, which is now present-day Myanmar. Famed Mizo historian B. Lalthangliana puts it this way: while we aren't able to know for sure the earliest Mizo song, we can determine that some of the earliest forms were couplets, or songs with 2 lines each. Fast forward a little bit to the 17th century, and the Mizo were by now a little more firmly cemented in what is now Mizoram state, although of course it wasn't called that back then. The pre-colonial period of the 18th and 19th centuries marked a significant era in Mizo music. It was during this era that songs not only evolved in terms of quantity, form, and content, but had grown into songs that exemplified more linguistic refinement and musical sophistication. It was also during this time that songs started to bear the names of their composers, which highlighted the beginning and importance of individual ownership when it came to Mizo music. In recent decades, Mizo historians have been able to classify Mizo song types into an indigenous system that encompasses over 100 distinct song types. One of the most popular categorization systems, however, is the one that was prototyped by writer and scholar R. Lalthangliana, who took this huge catalog of Mizo songs and classified them under 10 primary classifications. Bo'la. These were the war chants or war cries sung when warriors would return from successful fighting or raids. Some writers say it was just the warrior who had successfully killed an enemy who would get to chant a Bo'la, getting the unique privilege of letting the whole community know of their victory. One unique practice in Mizo warfare was the trampling of the enemy's dead body as a way of cementing the conqueror's victory. The chanting of the Bo'la was also believed to help dispel fear related to the enemy's soul, and they believed that it would help that soul have a safe and peaceful journey to the afterlife. Hlado. Similar to the Bo'la, the Hlado was also a victory chant, but these songs were sung by hunters when they met with success on the hunting expeditions. This meant the Hlado could be sung on the spot after having killed a wild animal or on the way back to the village along the way. It could also be sung later on in feasts or celebrations. Tiamla or Doila. These were particular songs performed by village priests or witches during rituals. Puipunla. The word puipun alludes to a gathering of people, so these songs could be sung by groups of people whenever they got together for special occasions or other festive events. Darla, meaning song for the gongs, These songs were meant to be performed on a selection of different instruments, primarily gongs rather than sung by people. Leng Zem Zai. These are usually love songs and still a popular category in Mizo music today. Songs named after tribes. These were songs about and named after specific Zo tribes. So for example, songs about and composed specifically for the Silo tribe would be known as Silo Zai. Similarly, there were also songs that were about and named after certain villages at the time. Songs named depending on the modulation of the voice. This category alludes to songs that were typified not by what was being sung, but how it was sung. Songs named after individuals. Oftentimes they were named after the composers themselves. Other times they were named after legendary stories of men and women. There's also another way of looking at the evolution of music in our Mizo culture. And thankfully, one of the books that came out this year on Mizo culture and heritage, written by young academic David Lalthangliana, details really well this evolution of Mizo songwriting and music in general. Here are some significant highlights that show the rapid level of importance that music and lyrics played when it came to the changing Mizo cultural landscape. In this book and other records like it, we see historians attributing the Lentlang Upala, which were the elder songs of Lentlang, which is in present-day Myanmar, to as far back as 1300 to 1450 AD. Now, this early category of songs includes the Nao Oila, the lullaby, the Darla, the songs of the musical instruments, and a few others. Following that was the period roughly between 1450 to 1700 AD, where our Mizo ancestors were likely still migrating, but still within the area that is now present-day Myanmar. And the songs created within this timeline are known as Lentlang songs, songs that were created when they were still east of the river Jiao. These include the war chants, the Bohla, the Hlado, the victory hunting songs, as well as more sophisticated forms of the lullaby and musical instrument songs. With lyrics now extending from couplets to verses of triplet lines and more, it also meant new types of songs were being formulated, like the Zhongzhenzai and Zaila. Both the Zhongzhenzai and Zaila songs were usually group songs rather than solos, and were intrinsically interrelated to the spring festival of Tzapzarkut, with the predominant mood being one of festivity and celebration. Then, between 1700 and 1900 AD, the era popularly believed to have been the time when our Mizo ancestors were migrating across the Jiao River in waves into what we now call Mizoram. Their song catalog was also expanding rapidly. Here we start seeing individuals being recognized for their contributions as songwriters, with many songs even having their names in the title. Examples of well-known songs that emerged in this era are the Darmani Zai, Darpongi Zai, Mangkaya Zai, Liantiare Zai, Saikuti Zai, and many, many more. Fast forward a little bit and things take a dramatic turn of events as we see a major shift in the tone, purpose, and content of songwriting and music in general in the Mizo culture around the turn of the 20th century. In the year 1894, Mizo people started singing Iswa Vana Aoma, or Jesus in Heaven. By 1899, the first Mizo Christian songbook was published, boasting a total of 18 songs, with 11 of them being translations of other gospel songs. By 1919, there were over 550 songs in the Mizo Christian songbook, with contributions from Mizo songwriters themselves having translated Christian songs from overseas. That being said, gospel wasn't the only genre of music that Mizo people came to love. The early 1900s saw Mizo songwriters combining what they knew from English songs and traditional Mizo melodies to create new songs that fell under the Lengkom category, or songs that were meant to be sung in big gatherings or celebrations. The Lengkom category was immensely popular, especially between the 1920s and 1940s, with famous Mizo composers like Batea, Chhuah, and Lalthangliana becoming household names, just to name a few. Another popular genre of music that has held continued significance for the Mizo people is the Lalthangliana, which generally are patriotic songs that celebrate being part of the great and expansive Zo ethnic umbrella. Perhaps ironically, one of the first recorded, if not the first recorded Lalthangliana was actually written not by a Mizo person at all, but a Welsh Christian missionary by the name of Edwin Rowlands, who wrote the song Mizo Ganni Lom Ilangin in 1903. Eventually, the 1930s and 40s saw a rising crop of Mizo songwriters like Gapleya, Lalthangliana, Rogunga, and others bring a fresh and original take on the Lalthangliana, songs that were celebrating the Mizo identity. This only intensified with significance during the 1960s and 1970s because Mizoram was going through a turbulent political climate during these decades. Writers like Chhuah were able to encapsulate the feelings of the Mizo people in songs like Kanramhi Kanramani, which means our land is our land. This has been just a brief look at how music has played a profound role in the preservation and celebration of Mizo culture and identity. From early beginnings of couplet lines in Lentlang, to influences from our Lai brothers and sisters, to war chants like the Bo'la or heartfelt Lengzem love songs, the patriotic Lalthangliana that celebrated the Mizo identity and spirit, or the adoption of English and Welsh lyrics into Mizo gospel songs still sung today. What is clear is that the last few centuries have seen Mizo music and lyrics becoming more sophisticated while still staying true to our cultural roots, celebrating all that it is to be a Mizo. Make sure to join us next time as we delve deeper into the legendary stories behind some of our oldest Mizo folk songs. See you next time on Hello Mizoram.